Teachers of Reddit, what is the most depressing thing your kids have said? Story 1. Ask for help how to get over her laziness. She was getting regular migraines, so would have to hide and sleep it off. Due to her parents, she learned that this was laziness. Story 2. My sister didn't wake up today. Her sister complained of headaches the night before because she hit her head. Parents didn't think anything was seriously wrong. They took her off life support a few days later. She was 9. Her sister, 5 years old. Story 3. I had a 16-year-old student say, I heard my parents fighting downstairs last night. My 10-year-old brother came into my room and got into bed with me crying because he's just now realizing we don't have a normal family. Story 4. Assignment was to write a poem about something you like to pretend. Student's poem started, I like to pretend that I have friends. This was in 1st grade. Story 5. I've had a lot, but one morning, 2 students came in early to my room and asked if they could use my student computer. I said sure, and figured that they just needed to finish a project and knew I always got to school early. Nope. Turns out their best friend was murdered 2 days before because he wouldn't give his money he earned to someone trying to rob him. His family needed the money to not be homeless, so he died trying to look out for his family, and for like $80 or something. My students were creating flyers and a GoFundMe so they could try to help the parents not be homeless and to afford a funeral. To make matters worse, the kid was murdered on a Saturday. He was left to bleed out and die to be found the next morning. The murderer came to my school on Monday as if nothing had happened. Cops pulled him out of the class in the middle of the day once they had figured out it was him. Story 6. Middle school. They went on a field trip yesterday, and one kid was sad because they wouldn't be at school, so he wouldn't get lunch. They were fed at the field trip, but he was totally concerned that he wasn't going to get fed that day. Story 7. Principal to class on day 1. Kindergarten is not like preschool. Attendance matters. It's very important that you be here every day. Kindergartner. What if you have to get a blood transfusion? Story 8. One of my students, who was always in a good mood, came into the class looking very down. She was not acting her usual self. I had to get on to her several times for being on her phone. Again, very unlike her. She asked if she could speak to me in the hallway. Kid, I'm sorry for being in such a bad mood today. Can I tell you why? Me. Of course. Kid proceeds to take her cardigan off, she had a tank top on underneath, and showed me welts that she had gotten the night before from her mother beating her with an electric cord. She says, my mother beat me for no reason last night and I don't know what to do. Sadly, it was not the first time I had to report. Edit. I didn't expect this comment to blow up. Lots of questions, but long story short, there was a happy ending. She got to move with her father, much better situation, who lived about an hour and a half away. She was able to finish the school year with us, her dad would drive her that long distance every morning, and the next school year she started at her new school. The abuse had been going on for a while. She was an only child. I taught high school freshmen, so she was 14. The day after she told me, she came to my classroom during my conference period and hugged me for a very long time. Story 9. A couple in the running. My boyfriend was shot in front of me and died in my arms. The ambulance we called never arrived. Mom went to go stay with my older sister 3 states away for a while. She told me I'm in charge of his twin 15-year-old brother and we need to make sure we stay at specific shelter. She never came back. A visibly sick student in class. Mom said she's working and I tried to call my dad. He hung up on me. He doesn't care about me anyways. On the first day of school and the first day of my career. How was your morning? Dude took 2 to the chest on his front porch on my way to school. Don't worry though, I didn't see his face. What are we doing today? Story 10. I teach pretty much exclusively college freshmen, and by that point they all have that fatalistic sense of humor anyway, but it gets real sad when they get to the end of the rope. Nothing specific that I can remember, but a lot of, why did I think I could make it in college? I'm too stupid for this, I should drop out. And they actually mean it. Stuff like that. Monday, however, a student asked to talk to me before class and said, I know this paper is important and all, and I don't want you to hate me, but I couldn't get my paper done. And I'm used to this sort of thing. I mean, it's just natural. But then he takes a deep breath and blurts out, my dad called me last night and told me he was leaving my mom and moving away, so he's leaving me too, and I just couldn't deal with it. I'm really sorry if you're mad at me. It just hits me so hard when they have to deal with more than they should, and on top of that, they think I've formed a personal opinion of them, and I'm going to think badly of them based on something like this. Story 11. I ran holiday science workshops filled with brainy kids, as you'd expect. There was an 11-year-old girl who was brilliant at everything. The content was clearly beneath her. Very quiet, respectful, well-liked by the other kids. Her parents were moving soon because she received scholarships to a prestigious school. Whenever her dad came to pick her up, he was obviously proud, telling me about all her achievements, how she was in advanced classes, just won all these sports awards too, etc. Showed videos and photos of her winning all these soccer games. They enrolled her younger brother in similar sessions. He gave it a go in the first few, but really struggled, always the last to finish, and felt his work didn't look as good as the others. Looked embarrassed to ask for help. He screamed at his sister when she tried to fix his circuit. Eventually, he just began acting out, putting off the work, challenging me to get a laugh out of the other kids, messing around. After a disastrous month, he stopped trying altogether. He just came in one afternoon and sat there, not doing anything. I tried to engage him in the activity and said if he didn't like what the other kids are doing, we could pick anything else he wanted to do. He said something like, "What's the point? My parents will never love me as much as they love my sister." Story 12. His parents would only give him a pillow and blankets for his bed if he had all A's. I contacted the school counselor and it was true, along with the fact that all of the food was locked away and he was only given specific amounts per day. Per DCFS, this was not considered abuse. I made a deal with him that as long as he was doing his best, his grade would never drop below an A. He teared up. Story 13. I had a girl playing with something while sitting at the carpet, rolling it back and forth and putting it in her mouth and taking it out and rolling it around again. I told her to give it to me when the other students started their independent work. She gave me this large green pill. At recess, I asked her about it, and she says her mom and dad give her and her siblings one of these every night to make them sleep. I take the pill to admin and tell them what she told me before searching Google images to find out what it could be. I find a short list and go back to admin, and I'm told it isn't my job to worry about that. I try several times that day to get answers, and they say they think it's melatonin, so stop overstepping my place. This girl and her siblings are in and out of foster care and come to school with no food and filthy clothes. She came to school in a sweatshirt covered in dried blood 3 days in a row. Her parents wouldn't even sign the papers to get the kids the free school lunches. I forged the mom's signature every month. Story 14. Every week, I'd let students earn raffle tickets, which would potentially allow them to choose a prize, such as bringing in a show and tell or picking a prize from my treasure chest. Anyways, one day, a student brings in her favorite doll. This leads all the girls to start talking about their favorite dolls. One student privately tells me that she never had a doll before. This made sense because the child was homeless, wore the same dirty outfit nearly every day, often stole from teachers and classmates because she became adapted to survival of the fittest mode, and her parents were out of the picture. That night, I went to Toys R Us right after school. The next week, I made sure this girl won a prize and stocked my treasure chest with a brand new teacher and student Barbie set. Well, this child picked the Barbie right away. The most touching part about this story was when she asked if she could show and tell her new Barbie. I said, sure. At the beginning of her show and tell, she introduced the student Barbie as her name and the teacher Barbie as being my name. I was so touched. Story 15. My mom taught in a very low-income school, and every year would go to the dollar store and pick up Christmas presents for all of her students. She knew that many of them didn't get any other gifts for the holiday. She also had stories about how they needed to be careful when constructing standardized tests because there were students who might answer a question like, "What do you do when you're hungry?" with "go to bed," or similar things. Story 16. Had one young man who had strange round markings on his arms I couldn't figure out. Looked a little bit like vaccine scars. Figured maybe some scarification thing from his culture I didn't know about, live in a melting pot country. We had a pretty good relationship, so I asked him. Nope. Cigarette burns from when he was a baby that had grown up with him. Story 17. Got a message today about why a student could not come to class yesterday. Sorry, I couldn't come to class. There were gunshots right outside my apartment and I thought I was going to die. The police did come eventually, and I had to give a statement. I will get the work from yesterday done today. Thanks. Yeah, you got that extension. Story 18. It was my first year teaching and the holidays were approaching. A second grade student asked me why Santa visits everyone else's home but skips hers. On Christmas Eve, my father and I played Santa. We dropped off gifts at their home for each child, with of course the permission of the legal guardians. Parents were in jail. Story 19. Taught at an inner city charter school. Had a bright 6th grade girl who started sleeping during my classes, which was not like her. When I asked after school what was up, she told me that her family, her, 2 younger sisters, and crackhead mom, moved into the homeless shelter, and the last time she slept through the night, all their stuff got stolen. Story 20. I had a girl miss several lessons last term. I was concerned about her progress in class and followed up on the absences. Next time I saw her, we had a wee chat and said she was really struggling with home stuff. The following day, she appeared very early with a letter and asked me to read it after she left. The letter stated that she was unable to tell her story out loud, but she wanted me to know. Her story detailed a difficult home situation. I redacted the details out of respect for the pupil, as I had no idea this would become so popular and well-read. It completely floored me. I had lessons starting in 15 minutes, but I couldn't stop crying. It felt awful that this strong, silent young girl could brave coming to class with the weight of this on her shoulders. So we worked out how to make school feel safer for her. She struggles to be around lots of people and near doorways without a trusted adult nearby. She's terrified that he appears in school to take her. So we spend our break and lunch in my class, playing games and watching silly videos on YouTube. If she has a bad day, I'll walk her to her bus. I make sure she's seated away from the door and nearby a friend or my desk. It's not much, but every little bit helps her feel safer. Edit. Thank you so much for your kind words. A few commenters were concerned regarding her safety. To clarify, safeguarding pupils is a massive part of my job. The correct agencies were informed, and she is currently getting counseling sessions to work through her situation. The police are informed, and the entire school is doing the best it can to protect her. Hope you all have a lovely Halloween. Story 21. 5-year-old girl was crying at the lunch table. I tell her she's going to see her mom soon, and it's okay. I don't know her very well at this point. She goes, "My mom's in jail." So I quickly go, "Your dad then?" And she goes, "He's in jail too." Her twin sister says, "We live with our grandma." I'm about to cry at this point, so I ask if they need anything. Can I get them anything? They ask for candy. I always carry caramels in my purse because these are safe candies and the kids love them and know I have them. I gave them each a handful of caramels and sat with them until their grandma came an hour later. We colored together. They each saved caramels for their grandma. I'll never forget those 2 little girls. Story 22. I don't want to give out too many details, but I've had to fill out 4 CPS reports in my 4 years of teaching. 3 for students that either confided in me or had signs that they were being physically abused, and 1 that was sexual abuse from the child's father. It's honestly the worst part of the job, having to hear and see just the awfulness some kids have to go through. Story 23. A student who I built trust with gave me a letter that detailed the horrific experience he had a few years prior. I checked with admin and he was no longer in that environment. And though they didn't know all the details, it was true that he had experienced those things. He just wanted someone else to know, I think, and it's something I'll never forget. Edit. Thank you to all for the kind messages and awards. I'd love to take this moment to add a little more. This child is one of unfortunately many who have shared similar traumas and experiences. My children, students, have been sold for sex, beaten, neglected, sold for drugs, and more. I choose to work in high-needs, low-income schools because those kids need us the most, and they need your vote. When you vote, please look at the education views of each candidate. Our children are suffering in this country, and our educational system is very poor. Leaking ceilings, rats, chairs that break when you sit in them, etc. And standardized testing is the worst. Schools that do well get funds. Schools that don't get closed down. But when schools are trying to teach children with that type of trauma and coming from homes that are hurting, there's no way to catch up. These kids who suffer so much deserve so much more, and I am one of many teachers who are there for them. We listen. We take on the weight of their pain. We truly love them. We're the teachers you wish you would have had, but most of us leave the profession before you'd get that chance. So please vote with your heart and with good knowledge on each candidate. There's many votes you'll be casting, and a straight ticket might eliminate a really good candidate for your local schools. And if you can, consider volunteering at your local school post-COVID. Kids need people who care. They need adults who can show them the world isn't as dark as it looks to them. Or donate some supplies at any time during the year. They're sorely needed. It's true about us paying out of pocket, and it's true that we don't make nearly enough money to justify doing that. The world is kinda dark, but the kids I've had the honor of teaching are the light. They truly are better than all of us. Story 24. School counselor here. My second year, I had a courageous student who suffered from a rare, debilitating disease. She didn't have many friends because she was never in school and always in hospitals. She loved reading, though. She brought books with her to the hospital. Unfortunately, due to the disease, her eyesight was now deteriorating, and she knew she would eventually go blind. She cried in my office that she would miss her books and didn't want to be alone in the dark. I couldn't help crying with her. She transitioned to audiobooks on her iPod. This was roughly 14 years ago, a time when middle schoolers didn't have smartphones. A year later, she passed away. My hope is she's at peace, reading all the books she wants with other friends she's met. Edit. Thank you all for the awards and comments. If I can pass on anything to all you educators out there, it's this piece of advice I received from a principal many years ago. Be kind to your students. The 7 hours they have in school may be the best 7 hours of their day. We are never certain what goes on in their homes.